No one will invest in Ukraine for the sake of the Ukrainian people. Yes, transnational companies will pick up some deposits somewhere, some favorable pieces of the economy. Naturally, the Americans or Europeans will support them. But to rebuild the country, only Russia will be able to help. But they, Americans and Europeans, have everything ready. Military components to come in and scare people. They will pull up NATO troops from Poland and Lithuania. That's why they have placed NATO units in Pobrada, 40 kilometers from the Polish border. Just in case the moment is ripe, people are discontented and so on, they are ready. That's their tactics. And strategically, they are preparing for 2030. But just in case, they are ready at any moment. They make structures and finance them for this. I publicly state to you that we do not want to use this process. The release of these criminals for the sake of sending a signal to the West. I don't care about the West at all. I would very much like you to find a mutual understanding with Transnistria. Now is the moment to find it. But not as you are doing now. Locking them there without gas. They will die. And you think it will be good for you. No. You must find ways to unite the country. If that unification doesn't happen, you're going to have bigger problems over time. I can't imagine. As far as I know from the media and our diplomats confirm, the current government has set a course for integration into Romania. Have you gone crazy over there? Why would you give such a beautiful, fertile Moldova to someone? What are you doing? Moreover, yes, the Romanians would like to have it, but they don't pressurize you. They do not take you by the breast and shake you, saying that you owe them something. They can't do that. It is impossible to enslave a nation in modern conditions. It's impossible. Do you want to go there yourself? Don't even think about it and don't do it. Poland pursues the most aggressive, bad policy against Belarus. I'm not inventing anything. Why I'm not making it up? Because I don't want it. You are our neighbors. As a historian, I tell you we have lived in the same state for many years. We lived poorly and well. We helped each other. But then something went wrong between us. Today you have statements not only from journalists about claims on Western Belarus, on Minsk. You have already started talking about Western Ukraine and so on. So the first question for you is, why do you need this imperialism? You understand that you will not get even a meter of territory from us. This is our territory. Are you ready to enter Ukraine, Western Ukraine? Just try it. Just try. Then you'll have to deal with Belarus and Russia. Don't go into Ukraine. Western Ukraine, this Ukraine, it will never be Poland. Just like Western Belarus. Here is my policy for you, frankly and honestly. In Belarus, there is an exchange of prisoners of war. Some of them are killed. Unfortunately, there are a lot of them. Hundreds have to be exchanged, and we do it all. We will maintain these relations with Cuba, with Nicaragua, with Mexico, with you and with Brazil. If we can build that, if we can sustain that, look, it's going to be great. It would be good for us. We are literally going to have Oreshnik any day now. We have agreed with Russian President Vladimir Putin that the next unit will be delivered to Belarus even earlier than to Russia.
And where do you want to place these weapons, these complexes?
You want the exact spot?
At least roughly.
There, closer to Smolensk, I so dream, and there we'll see. One Oreshnik complex is enough to secure Belarus, but they are needed in Russia as well. And we have not stipulated any specific deadlines. There is no hurry. Why are we deploying Oreshnik in Belarus? You know that this is in response to the desire and possibility of the placement of medium-range missiles by the Americans in Europe. It's a response. So, if they refuse to do so, then I will tell my elder brother that it's okay. Let's wait. It doesn't matter whether they are in Smolensk or Orsha. It doesn't matter to us. But it is important for us that American medium-range missiles do not reach Europe, because they can be equipped with a nuclear component. Don't reproach me for putting troops there. Those were not Belarusian troops. I am responsible for the Belarusian troops, and if you think, despite our close relations with Vladimir Putin, that I am sitting in the Russian General Staff and drawing on a map the movement of the Russian armed forces, well, listen then, you are a layman. So I criticized him. US President Donald Trump at first. But then I thought that I shouldn't criticize him too much because he has not yet come out of this pre-election frenzy. Imagine a man was shot in the ear. It's no joke. A few millimeters and the man is gone. That's why he went through the toughest times and bulldozed his way to victory. He won, and it was hard to imagine that after what happened, Donald could win. We'll forgive him for that. But he has to understand that we, you, me, and others are going to be sanctioned, taxed, so Americans could live. You know, we're not going to agree with that very much. So all of that has to be set aside. But what he said, he'll be a peacemaker. Then I say we'll support him. If he wants to be a Nobel Prize winner, we'll support that if he wants to. Tass asked the question, Europe has one path, the sensible way, to pursue its own policy. The money is there. The technology is there. We need resources. They are here in the Belarusian Russian space. They are in Russia. Make an agreement with Russia. They are ready to sell you cheaper gas, natural gas, other resources, cheaper oil. And if you come to an agreement with Russia, look, America couldn't do that. Even China can't compete with this union. We don't expect any handouts from America, but we want to cooperate with them. I realize that it is, after all, the leading country in the world. And in general, we should stop focusing even on it, the US. Yes, a large economy, a third of the world's GDP, maybe a little more. So what? So it's a third. And where is the rest? In China, in India, in Russia, in other countries. And what resources? Africa has woken up and will no longer dance under the lash of the United States of America. You have to realize that America and us will not solve global issues in the world. We know our place. Now, regarding peace in Ukraine. Well, this is not a question for me. You have known my political position for a long time, especially regarding Turkey. There were 3 rounds of peace talks immediately after the conflict started. These Ukrainians, Zelensky is showing off as best he can. We agreed to hold the first meeting in Gomel, let's say at 11 a.m. They arrived only at night. And frankly speaking, I was already holding the Russians back, saying, guys, don't leave. They say, come on, we'll go. They don't want to negotiate, so be it. I said they would blame you later for not wanting to negotiate. They did not listen to me. Well, I heard it as the journalists interpreted it, but I don't think they distorted it. Zelensky, was proposing something. He wanted some kind of peace, and I kind of offered him, but he said, strike the Moser oil refinery. Look, when I heard that, I felt sick. It was totally unacceptable to me. To suggest that Zelensky strike our refinery, the best refinery in the world, I'd say, which we've recently modernized and invested a huge amount of money in. I swear to you, it never happened. Why would you, Zelensky, say that? You're a bad showman. You're not even Trump. You can't say that. You're lying. To even suggest that I'm going to ask him to hit the plant, that wouldn't be good for me. and then I had to respond. So why was I getting involved in a war? I never wanted this war, and I did everything I could to keep it from happening. We are in favor of peace in Ukraine. Everything must be taken into account now, including Russia's position. There is no way without it. America will never force Russia. Trump is not an idiot, not a fool. He will not say that to Putin, and if he does, it will be to his detriment. If Europeans are afraid of escalation, then escalation can reach Europe. So we have to stop now. And this is first and foremost in Europe's interest. The Europeans have to play their role. They understand that. But they have to get off this American aircraft carrier and make a decision. This is our home. We have to make a decision. There will be some kind of resolution this year. I'm not saying the war will end. We will probably be in conflict for a long time. When we Slavs start conflicts, it's for a long time. But there will be a solution. If we want peace and stability here, we have to take part in these negotiations so that the future will be good. That's my position, that's all. Nothing personal. What's it got to do with me? It's got nothing to do with me and nothing to do with Belarus. They decided to shoot me. But do you know who they wanted to shoot? Who doesn't understand that? There will be more. They, the Armenian leadership, have now started to flirt with the European Union, and this is a very dangerous game. It will destroy Armenia. Calm him down there. He will destroy Armenia. Putin and I are discussing our future. We are already experienced people, and we are adding up the best bit by bit. We have laid a solid foundation, and we will strengthen it so that our children will go in the same direction. That is why we are discussing how we will live and how we will work together. But nothing of the kind. I want to justify myself once again. Unfortunately, I have to do it. There was nothing of the kind in our talks about uniting into one state and absorbing each other. Why? Because we are intelligent people. Vladimir Vladimirovich and I were discussing this subject the other day. I told him that it would be strange if I went anywhere but Moscow. Putin replied that he was always waiting for us. That was the conversation. Well, of course, it won't just be strange. It will be incomprehensible to many people. That's why I'm planning to meet the president of Russia in Moscow. We will have the appropriate negotiations as part of my official visit. This nuclear umbrella is to keep you from getting wet in this nuclear rain. That is, it won't rain at all. That's what this nuclear umbrella is for. Nobody wants to go to war with a nuclear country, and nobody will. Not even the United States of America.
The European Parliament passed a resolution this week calling for the results of the presidential election not to be recognized.
First of all, I would like to say that this is groveling to the big brothers in Washington. If you are really so principled about elections, then you should say something to them about American elections. Scary. How can you judge something that has not yet happened? It seems that, as always, the guys hurried and made a mess that they will have to clean up later. We are holding elections for our people. And by tomorrow morning, we will know all the assessments and draw the appropriate conclusions. It doesn't matter whether someone likes or doesn't like the fact that we have 5 candidates, that the president is running again, and that he can win, and so on. The people will have their say. We are holding it for the people. And how you, the journalists, judge it is your right.
Well, I guess we'll move on to the BBC then, shall we? Steve Rosenberg, start, please.
What other nasty question do you have in store for me? It's always something like that.
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
But how can you call these elections democratic when your most ardent opponents and rivals are either in prison Or in exile?
Steve, there may be a follow-up to the question now, but I'm going to answer it so I don't forget. Who's in prison? Who's in exile? And you're here. It's the right to choose. It's democratic. We are going to build a country, and we are not going to let anyone shut us up. That's how it's going to be.
But your serious rivals are not only not allowed to take part in the elections, some of them are sitting behind bars. And there are still more than 1,200 political prisoners.
Wait, there's already been a lot of releases. That's 1,200 prisoners. You said it was the day before.
Yes, that's it.
Well, if you subtract more than 200, what's the total? Didn't you go to school? At BRICS, I remember you asked me about Kolesnikova, that she was dead, that no one was allowed in there. Frankly, you encouraged me to ask what's wrong with Maria. I was told she was fine. I even said to the press secretary, "You know Steve, don't you? See if you can tell me personally where she is, what's wrong with her." The press secretary said she was fine, and they even talked.
We have spoken to the other candidates in this election. One of them publicly...
But they're not in jail, are they?
Yes, they're not in prison. One of them even publicly supports you, your rival, the leader of the Communist Party, and the other one praises you. It's quite strange. It's a strange race, isn't it, with opponents like that?
Steve, this is a new experience for you.
Yes, I've never seen an election like this, it's true.
Because in the only country in the post-Soviet space, in Belarus, we have never persecuted any party. To your and those who are behind you, deep regret. Not even the Belarusian Popular Front. And even Zianon Pazniak, who pursues a completely different policy, and his point of view is different from mine.
It is known that neither the US, the EU, nor the UK recognize you as a legitimate president.
That's your right.
What are your hopes related to the new US administration? Do you hope that this situation will change because of US President Donald Trump?
Whether you and the European Union recognize these elections or not, well, it's a matter of taste. Believe me, I swear to you, it is absolutely, as you say, not important whether you recognize our elections or not. The main thing for me is that the Belarusians recognize these elections and quietly end them as they began. What are you gonna do? Well, you're used to it. You were bashing Trump from morning till night before the election. As soon as Trump won the election, you crawled across the Atlantic. Who crawled, who crept on the bottom, who crept overhead? Some don't know how to crawl up to Trump today. You have a tough fate ahead, Europe, so prepare yourself. You should be worried about it. With Trump's return, Belarus may not face difficulties, but Europe certainly will. The problems have already begun for you. He told you straightforwardly, and well done. I support him in this, although not in everything. I have already mentioned this, but I support him. He said to you guys, do you want to wage war in Ukraine? So pay. Not 2%, but 5%. And you are like serpents, like grass snakes, twisting and turning, not knowing how to find a way out of this situation. Trump wanted to make Europe bend. He ripped the UK out of the EU. Why would that be necessary if America was aimed at strengthening the European Union? He did rip it out. Betting on who? The Poles. What he doesn't realize is that Germans and Poles are hardened, old, dare I say it, enemies. It's not you don't know it or someone doesn't know it. You just keep quiet. It's true. So why are you splitting Europe? Why are you betting on Poland? Because that's the policy. They'll put you in such a position that you won't get up for decades or centuries. They destroyed your economy. So, they are trying to destroy our economy. Russia and Belarus. Some of the German journalists, perhaps even some present here, wish to visit the southern border for an investigation. The Belarusian-Ukrainian border, however, is closed and heavily guarded by Ukrainian troops. On our side, there are only border guards. I checked today, and our border guards informed me that they not only advised against but outright forbade German journalists from approaching this border. I said, "What are you doing, guys? You've called in journalists and are telling them they can't do something in Belarus. They're not committing terrorist acts, are they? No. So why are you forbidding them? If they want to film, call them and discuss it. You can warn them not to go near the border, but that decision is ultimately up to them. Just warn them. If they're interested, let them go and film. Perhaps we should establish some criteria for democracy. Let's define them and use these criteria to evaluate America, Great Britain, Brussels, and Minsk. Right now, you're providing us with a single criterion to judge our actions while applying a different standard to others. That's not fair. They've created their own narratives and then start discussing them. Do you want, I'll use that obscene term again, OSCE, ODR, to come to us? We've invited them. Come. You invited us too late. Where does it say that we should have invited you yesterday instead of today or tomorrow? You simply didn't want to come, so we didn't go. Why are you shouting about not being invited? We haven't forbidden anyone from entering Belarus. Go and see what the fuss is about after the election. When you're on your business trip, take the opportunity to speak with her. Ask her a question. Maria Kolesnikova, why are you sitting here? She must respond to you. This isn't a question for me. For it to be valid and considered under the law, whether in America, Brussels, or elsewhere, there's a clear rule that we have adopted from you, the Democrats. You need to make an appeal to the person who decides on pardons. If you don't do this, then you're left with no options. We have never abandoned our relations with the West, including Germany. The leading economy, I'm not sure at the moment, maybe not the leading nation in the West. We have always been open to dialogue, but it seems you are not interested. Should we bow before you or crawl on our knees? If you are willing to engage in a conversation, we are open to dialogue with the EU, even with those who have taken aggressive stances towards us. Life changes. We were once at war with the Germans, and there was a time recently when we had good relations. Human memory is such that everything gets erased. The opposition is those who are in the country, and I'm ready to have a dialogue with those on whom something depends. From the opposition inside our country, I know that one of the presidential candidates is Anya Konopatskaya. Listen, she has been criticizing me for probably 15 years without ceasing, and I will tell you frankly that this persistence of hers is supported by some people in our society. I know that. It's up to you, gentlemen Germans, to have a dialogue with them. Don't miss it. They will give you so many problems that you will not be able to wake up afterwards. I have already warned you that you are creating a Gonfalon Corps in Poland and Lithuania, and you have created a Belarusian volunteer corps in Ukraine. Make sure that they do not turn these machine guns against you.
Anti-government demonstrations are now taking place in Slovakia and Serbia. In these countries, these demonstrations are called attempts to overthrow the authorities. At the same time, Belarus is also under pressure. And your colleague mentioned the resolution of the European Parliament. And you also mentioned armed extremists who are preparing against Belarus abroad. In your opinion, are all these actions coordinated? What is their interest and what is their goal? Thank you very much.
These are all actions, believe me. You will believe me. But I want foreigners to believe us that everything is absolutely coordinated, and everything is run from the United States of America, and most of it is financed by United States funds, and sometimes directly through the embassy. SOT, Alexander Lukashenko, Belarusian president, Russian. You must endure. The multipolarity of our planet depends on you today. If China can withstand it, and I'm sure it will, and we are ready to work together in this regard. I'm not afraid of Washington here. Steve Rosenberg, British journalist, would reproach me for that. We are ready to work in this regard. We need multipolarity. A unipolar world will not ensure prosperity for all nations. Ukraine is paying the price for democracy. There were 47 million people. Now there are 20 million. There's no one to fight. They want to fight, but there is nobody to fight with.